Hey guys, my name is Jake. I'm the owner of Middle Coast. We are a real estate media company here in Southeast Wisconsin. We've been in business for just over 4 years, and inevitably, this is the time of year that I like to tweak things in the business. I'm always trying to make it better, more competitive, more valuable for you guys. But before I make these changes that I want to make in 2025, I wanted to take you guys through my thought process and how a real estate media company like Middle Coast fits into a real estate agent's business. So I'm going to do this as fast as possible, but I just want to take you through my thinking here. So this winter, I listened to this book called Turning the Flywheel, which basically describes how all businesses have a circular process within them, much like a mechanical flywheel. As you complete steps and move to the next step, and you start turning this flywheel, it takes a lot in the beginning to get the flywheel going, but as you turn it multiple times, it gets easier and easier, and it builds up a lot of momentum. So what I did is I went and created a real estate agent flywheel as I see it. And it looks like a little bit of a mess, but it's not too bad. I want to take you through it. But before I take you through it, I think it's good to nail down the question, what is a real estate agent's job? And I would say a real estate agent's job is to get as much money as possible on the sale of a home. So how do you get the most money possible when you're selling a listing? You have to generate a lot of demand. So obviously, if you have no demand for a home, you're not going to be able to ask as much as if you have a lot of demand. So you have one person interested in a listing, and it's been sitting for 6 months. That person, that one person who's interested, they know they have a ton of leverage, and you don't have very much. Now, if you're able to generate a ton of leads and you have 50 people who want that home, now all of a sudden the leverage is on your side. You're able to get hopefully a much better deal, a much higher selling price. And in the end, that's what most sellers want. Now, obviously, there's nuances to this where maybe a fast sale is more important to a client, but for sake of simplicity, we're going to say that a real estate agent's job is to get the highest price that they can for a listing, and they do this by generating as much demand for the listing as possible. So now that we got that down, I want to take you through this flywheel. So when you first started out as an agent, you probably had a bit of a hard time getting a listing. You had no track record. No one would trust you. But just by the fact that you are alive and you have a life, you had friends and family that you knew, and even though you probably didn't think of these as leads, these were leads, and you probably worked those leads, and eventually you were able to get one of those friends or family members to list their home with you. So you sat down, they said, all right, we're going to give you a shot, let's sell my home, and now you had to prepare that home to be sold. So there are many things that you need to do to list a home for sale, but for sake of this flywheel, we're just focusing on this completing the photo shoot. No matter how you do it, you at least have to do some sort of photo shoot so you can get some content to market the listing and put it on the MLS. So you basically have 4 options when it comes to the photo shoot. You can do it yourself, whether you buy your own equipment or you do it with a phone. That's a valid option. You can have an in-house photographer that you pay, someone that's an employee of your business. You can do one of the big box media companies. So think the Zillow photography company. These companies are usually nationwide. They have a headquarters remotely somewhere, and they hire freelance photographers throughout the country that can pick up these shoots. So it's very similar to the Uber model where Uber built the platform, and I can go on and order a shoot or order a ride, and then one of the freelance drivers in the area will pick me up and give me that ride. So that's how those operate. And then there's the local media companies, that's Middle Coast, and there's many others in the area here in Southeast Wisconsin, but we're usually locally owned, much smaller companies. So whatever you choose, you get the photo shoot done, and then you use that content to market the listing to potential buyers. So you're going to do some warm outreach, you're going to do cold outreach, sending out flyers, mailers, cold emails, cold calls. You list it on the MLS, obviously, and then you can do some social media posting. Just listed, contact me if you want to learn more, that type of thing. And obviously, you can do paid social ads too if you want to get more eyeballs on those posts. And all of these things, like I said, are generating these buyer leads. And we want to generate as many leads as we can so that you can then start to work those leads. You have a great open house. You generate a ton of excitement, a ton of demand for this listing. And then when it comes time to negotiate, you are in a spot of great leverage because there's a ton of demand and you're able to get a very high selling price for this listing. And then eventually you sell the listing and you harvest those profits from that sale. So obviously you're running a business. You're going to have some overhead that some of this profits has to go to. You have to eat and sleep somewhere, so you have to pay for all of those things. But some of these profits should be set aside to start generating more seller leads. So you do this by doing cold outreach, cold emails, cold calls, again, mailers, flyers, that type of thing. And maybe now that you have a little bit of money, you can start to automate some of those things. You can do your social media posting. We just sold this house in 3 days for well over asking. Reach out to me if you want to do the same for your home, that type of thing. And you can obviously pay to have those social media posts seen by more people. And then you're always doing your warm outreach as well. And we're generating these seller leads over here. And then as we generate these leads, you start to work those seller leads. We're back to where we started in the flywheel. And as you continue to do this, each time you do it, it gets easier and easier. You build up this momentum, and you can see that I have some arrows going over to the brand building section here, because the byproduct of turning this flywheel is that you start to build your brand. You know, everything you do, even these things down here, are things that are helping to build your brand. Every time you make a post, every time you make a call, every time you sit down with someone, you're building your brand, and hopefully it's a good brand. And this is all being done just by doing the work of being a real estate agent. I think sometimes agents want to jump into making all of this extra brand content to grow their brand. And while that is important, I don't think it's the primary thing that you should be doing. It's not the first thing. The first thing should be really dialing in this flywheel and doing your job. And by as a byproduct, you will build your brand and you will generate more profits. And then once you have this flywheel turning and you have more profits, then you can take that money and do some special brand products or brand projects. So I want to go back and focus in on this part of the flywheel, because this is where Middle Coast works. And we're hoping that you would like to plug Middle Coast into your flywheel right here. So, but I want to go through the pros and cons of all four of these options here. So obviously, if you do it yourself, one of the pros is it's going to save you money, because at the beginning, you probably have a lot of time and you don't have a lot of money. So you might want to do it yourself. But I think what most agents find out pretty quickly is that as they start getting busier, their time becomes more valuable, and it doesn't make sense for them to do the photo shoot. Unless you really love photography, but in that case, you should probably just become a photographer or start a photography company of your own. So we're going to pull that one out because it does not make sense for very long. The next one is the in-house photographer, so one of your employees. This is really nice because you have complete control over them. You can control how they do things, when they do things. That's one of the benefits of doing it yourself as well. You have complete control over the process. one of the downsides of the in-house photographer is that it's expensive. You have to pay to keep them on as an employee. You have to train them. In the winter when you don't need them, you're still paying them. So that's something that it's works out well for some very big teams or some very productive agents. But in general, most folks aren't going to go down this route. And if you're watching this, you're probably not going down this route. So we're going to take that out. So the last two options here are the big box media companies and the local media companies. So the big box companies, they are going to probably have more availability than some of the local companies, and that's because they can hire tons of freelancers in the city, and they don't have to pay those freelancers until a shoot arrives. So many times, if you want to book a last-minute shoot, a company like Zillow Photography Company is going to have some last-minute spots for you to take, whereas a company like Middle Coast, there's only two of us, Shane and myself. We're not always going to have that last-minute availability. Another benefit of some of these bigger box companies is that a lot of times, because they're doing things at scale and they're maybe shooting hundreds or thousands of listings a day across the country, they're able to push their prices down and give you a little bit of a cheaper option. Now, I'd say some of the disadvantages are the quality is not always quite as high as it would be in a local media company because they're doing a lot of listings every day. Another downside is the customer service and reliability might not be quite where you want it to be. Again, you might be talking to someone on the other side of the country. These freelancers, they may not show up, that type of thing. Not saying this is always the case, but it could be a problem with these larger companies. And then the last con, I guess I would say, is the customer experience is not very customized because obviously they have to do hundreds or thousands of shoots. So everything is very cookie cutter in these companies. Whereas a local company, it may be a bit more expensive, but you're going to get a little bit higher quality product. Hopefully the customer experience is going to be more customized to you. The customer service and reliability is hopefully top notch. So let's say you decide you really like the idea of a local media company like Middle Coast. You're willing to pay a little bit more for all of those pros that I listed out. Now, why would you go with Middle Coast over another local media company? And I feel like this is where we want to make the change in 2025 because in the past, we really are not very different from any of the other media companies in the area. And in some ways, we're not even that different than these big box companies right now. And I want to change that. And the way we're going to do that is we want to become a more well-rounded partner in your flywheel. If you decide to plug us into your flywheel, we are going to work on extracting as much value as we can out of this photo shoot because you already have to do it. And we're going to create a ton of content from just one shoot. And then we want to better serve you on the back end by providing a much more customized experience, a much more supportive experience, because what we want to do is be thought of as a partner, not just a glorified freelancer that you plugged into this part of your flywheel. And in turn, if we do a better job in this space, that's only going to help you turn your flywheel faster and more times. And as you become more successful, that is going to be a benefit to us, obviously, when we're working with you, because you're going to have more listings for us to shoot. So I know that's pretty vague, but tomorrow I'm going to send out another email where I go through all the specifics of the changes we make and how we're going to become a better, more well-rounded partner for you guys. So for now, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Have a great day.